In my experience, one of the skills that developers lack the most are organizational skills. This mostly relates to taking a big project from your product manager, from your client, and then breaking it down into meaningful chunks. So, of course, the rest of your team can review it, so your organization, your management, your CTO, CEO, whatever, can see where you are, etc., etc., etc. The reason why I decided to record this video is because I felt short exactly when it comes to this past 2 years, maybe 4 times. And even though I'm very great at sharing this philosophy with others, I'm often very prone to this issue as well. So let's discuss this a little bit, and then I can maybe share some insights of what I've learned in my career. So, as I just said at the start of this video, one of the things that we really suck, or where most developers suck, even the ones in engineering, is actually taking a chunk of feature, taking a project from your Kanban board, and then really organizing that in reasonable chunks into reasonable chunks. So again, as I said, people can actually, for example, review that code. If some of you have watched my video on effective code reviews here on YouTube, one of the points there was that usually the bad results or the way not to do code reviews is to push a PR of, let's say, 3,000 lines of code, because no developer actually reviews that. It's almost impossible. And even if developers would try to get into that, reviewing that piece of feature, that code would take a long time, because it might change drastically now, because if they find 50 different things inside of your 3,000 lines of code, there's a chance that you might even need to rewrite the whole thing, right? So when it comes to organizational skills, if you're a junior, mid-level, senior developer, doesn't matter. I want you to understand that your ability to break tasks down that you get is probably one of the most important skill you're gonna have in your career. So let's find an arbitrary example. Let's imagine that I'm your product manager, and I go to the Kanban board that you're using, Linear, Trello, some Atlassian tool, whatever, and I create a new story or new project called Build Landing Page X. And that landing page has a bunch of stuff on it. It has maybe a header, bunch of elements, some sliders, buttons, this, etc., etc., etc. One of the most common issues, one of the biggest failures that you can do is just start building this. You just say, okay, this is a story, build a landing page, and you just start building a landing page. Now, the issue with this thing is that it's impossible for you that way to actually push something for other people to see, because you're all over the place. You're building the whole thing. You're not really focusing on any parts. Now, the correct way to build this would be, okay, so I got this huge story from my product manager, from my CTO, from my team lead, depending on your organization. Maybe you don't even have a product manager yet. So how do I start this? How do I approach this task, right? I cannot just approach, imagine you are a car factory and okay, let's build a car. You don't just start building a car. That car is composed of so many different elements. So there's no difference between your homepage. So how do you do this? Well, you take the homepage, you break it down into meaningful chunks. So you say this homepage consists of a header, it consists of a slider, it consists of this, that, etc., etc., etc. If we are to stick to this specific example, you would open up your storybook and you would start laying out those components separately. You would build one thing, another thing, third thing, nth thing, and then you would start composing this. Now, one of the most important things that you want to do for your own well-being, your own sake, to reduce stress, to reduce anxiety, is whenever you get a big project, what you want to do is you want to park this somewhere in production, somewhere behind the Darkly flag, behind behind some, for example, at Dream Data where I work currently, we use Launch Darkly. So you want to release things as quickly as you possibly can. You don't want to accumulate that huge feature in your computer, because now subconsciously you're thinking about it. You're thinking, oh, there's so much stuff here that I haven't actually showed to anybody. So what if I do that in 2 weeks and my product manager says, well, actually that's not correct. So what I highly advise you is that first, so you take the story, you make the subtasks to that story, so you break it down into very small, meaningful chunks. And then you, for example, what I do usually at work if I'm coding, or what my colleagues do, what we also started doing very recently, is that if you're talking about the front end feature, we create a new route somewhere in our router. We just expose it under some random thing. It can be /banana, and you start putting things there. So even if you're just done with that header, release that page with a header, and you can tell to your product manager or any stakeholders, any people waiting for that feature, people who are very excited, they can then track how far you got. This is gonna help you to not accumulate too much stuff. This is gonna help your management to actually know where you are, if you need help, if you're on the right track. So in simple words, you want to release this so you can already start getting feedback on the things you're doing. Now, of course, one very fundamental thing, one very important thing that you have to tell them is that this is a work in progress. So you have to share this with a very small circle of people, and they have to be aware that you are still working on this. So what I've seen very often with this process when it comes to my work that I do is that people are so reluctant to kind of see it, and then they prematurely start commenting, why is this button not here? Why is this margin like this? It's because I'm not done yet. So it's very fundamental that when you're going through this process that you actually go ahead and make sure to tell people, the stakeholders, hey, this is the current status of this. So in simple words, again, one of the most important skills of a software engineer is organization, and then this umbrella of organization is the scope and breaking things down. So don't accumulate, don't start features just building them, let me build a car. No, build a window, build a wheel, build a part of the engine, then compose that together as they would in the factories, I'm sure. So, and then once you do that, get the things out there. Don't get it in staging, get it to production under darkly flag. Make sure that people in your organization can see it. Feature doesn't have to be complete to be released internally in your company. There are many people who are very happy to see how you progress, and also this way you're gonna release a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and then your product manager, your designer, etc., 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 they will be able to follow up your progress and see where you are. Do you need more help, etc., etc., etc. So try to do this. I gave you an arbitrary example of a front-end feature. This can be related to the back-end. This can be related to anything. If you're building an API, for instance, you cannot say, okay, the task is build a whole server, right? You have to break that down. You have to learn how to do it. And the only and the best way to do it in this context is you take something big, you break it down into meaningful tasks, and then you just release. Just show it, and then, if you can imagine this page, it's going to be an empty page with a header, then it's going to be an empty page with a header and a slider, with a button, and then eventually that page is going to be filled and complete, and people will be able to track what you're doing, how you're doing it, etc., etc., etc. So that's for the video today, especially if you're junior, especially if you're not very experienced with work. Trust me when I tell you this is a highly, highly, highly important thing. If you can nail this down, if you can get good at organizing yourself, at doing preliminary work before you start coding, which is the most fundamental thing, you're gonna do so well in your career. I will quote just Albert Einstein. He also said, that's one of my favorite quotes overall, he said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes looking for the right questions to ask. So you can take this quote and understand that there's so much importance in putting work up front before you start coding, just as you would do when you're building a tunnel in a construction sense. If you're an architect, you wouldn't just start building, you would spend a lot of time figuring out the best process to approach that problem and that project and a task. That's all for today. I wish you guys best. Please let me know actually if this is helpful. Let me know how you're working and what has been the challenge for you. But this is genuinely, as all of my videos here on YouTube, this is coming fully from my experience. I have tested this for several years now, maybe past 2 or 3 years. I've been doing this extensively since I joined Dream Data, and managers at Dream Data have enormously helped me with this. And I really became a lot more productive and a better developer because this has nothing to do with coding skills. You can be the best engineer on the planet, but if you start projects in the wrong way, if you don't encapsulate yourself in some scope, it usually goes sideways. I wish you best, and I'll see you guys in another one. Peace out and all the best. Bye bye. Cheers.